So now we'll get to the lesson. What is tomorrow?
Memorial Day.
Monday.
What does it mean? What has it meant? That's what we're going to look at today. Memorial Day is primarily a national holiday on which we remember and honor men and women who have given their lives for our country. I think it's Abraham Lincoln that said in an address at Gettysburg that covered this very well. Lincoln said, "It's altogether fitting and proper that we should do this. Memorial Day, remember. It's fitting and proper for us to observe Memorial Day, not only as Americans, but as Christians. There should be no conflict of our loyalty to our God and our loyalty to our country. These loyalties reinforce each other. For God has not set us to live our lives in isolation or privacy, but within the framework of living which He has appointed to us. The life which He gave us has an inescapable membership, and it has an inescapable character. It's unique. By divine appointment, we are members of a home. We are members of a community, and we are members of a nation. And just as being a Christian is to be a member of the body of Christ, we are a member of this country. To live as God intended us to live, we must fulfill our obligations in each of those spheres. But what is the spirit in which we observe what we call Memorial Day? In 1 Chronicles 11, 10 through 25, we're told of David's mighty men. The Bible tells us about 30 of these. They were men of great valor. I can't read all of it to tell you the story. David is out in a cave hiding, and he's got these men with him. But let's look at the character of these men. One of these guys on a snowy day jumped in a pit with a lion and killed it. One of these guys in battle took on a 7-foot 5-inch Egyptian with a spear or a spear that was as long as a weaving apparatus that they weave things with. And all this man had was a club. And he took the spear away from the Egyptian and killed him with it. Those are just two examples of the courage and the bravery of David's mighty men. David, like I said, is holed up in a cave, and he's weary, and he's just laid it all out after a hard battle with his enemies, the Philistines. And he took refuge in this cave, and it was close or near to his native town of Bethlehem. Spurred by memories of his boyhood, but knowing that the town is occupied by the enemy, and that he is therefore longing for the impossible, David exclaims to his men, "Oh, that someone would give me water to drink from the well of Bethlehem, which is by the gate." But hardly did these words come from David's mouth when 3 of his heroic soldiers, of his mighty men, break through the enemy lines, draw water from the well of Bethlehem, and bring the precious drink to their king. David receives the vessel from the hands of his heroes, but he would not drink it. He poured it out to the Lord and said, "Far be it from me, for my God, that I should do this. Shall I drink the lifeblood of these men? For at risk of their lives, they brought it. They brought it at a price of a willingness to make so great a sacrifice. It was too costly a drink to be enjoyed selfishly. The only use worthy of it was to pour it out as a thank offering to the Lord." The sensitivity to sacrifices made for us, this sense of obligation to make consecrated use of the results of sacrifices, constitute the right spirit for celebrating Memorial Day. That's the spirit that we should be in. What is Memorial Day to you? No one has expressed the spirit so concisely and yet so eloquently as Lincoln did at Gettysburg. There's three thoughts that come up about this address that he made. First is the appreciation of a great heritage. Lincoln says, "Our fathers brought forth upon this continent a new nation, conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. The land which the fathers of our nation have bequeathed to us is the land of liberty, equality. The flag which they lifted over it is a flag which stands for freedom of thought, freedom of speech, freedom of conscience, and most importantly, freedom of worship. And it represents the right of every citizen to enjoy these freedoms and equal opportunity and to make the most of his or hers God-given capabilities. The fathers accepted this liberty and equality as sacred trust from the hand of God and taught us to praise the power that has made and preserved us as a nation. In remembrance, we are to praise God and to honor those who made such sacrifice. Greater love has no one than this, that one laid down his life for his friends." Are we worthy heirs of such riches? Do you praise them so highly that we constantly thank God for them? Do we appreciate the high privilege of American citizenship? And do we make responsible and constructive use of it? Do we? We Americans of the 21st century who tend to take our freedom for granted need to recover the reverent appreciation of it which the fathers had and which Lincoln had. Think about that. Are we in the right spirit? Look outside our own country and our own history. Take, for instance, the country of Finland. Finland achieved its independence, and this poet wrote this stirring ode to the freedom of Finland. These lines are much better in the original poetry, but even in prose, their message comes through. He says, "You are the highest, the most longed for." And he's talking about the country. He's talking about Finland. "For under you are the most prized, most longed for under heaven. In the midst of the long centuries and the stillness of the night, we have waited for you. And now you long expected, you bride of our dreams, are here to wipe away the disgrace of slavery. We cannot weave you a garland of flowers. We cannot make it out of roses or laurels, but we lift up to your brow the crown of our people's suffering. And standing at your altar, we vow as a nation that only over our dead bodies does the oppressor come near you. Only when the last arm has stiffened, still grasping the hilt, only when the last drop of blood has been spilled before you. The poet is talking about the heritage, the pride of his country. It was that spirit he talked about which girded the Finnish patriots when 2 decades later they stood up bravely in defense of their freedom against an overwhelming oppressor, the Germans. Today, we honor Americans who have defended our freedom in the same spirit. They have stood against the oppressor for our land. The second thought that Lincoln had in his speech is the acknowledgement of the price paid for our heritage. We remember those who gave the last full measure of devotion, who gave their lives that a nation might live. Memorial Day calls us to pay respect to the brave men, living and dead, who have fought to preserve a nation. But in doing so, we are compelled to count the cost of our heritage in terms of lives of fathers and mothers, widows and orphans. On the long run, we appreciate most the things which we have paid most for. Our American way of life has been purchased at a high price. And we say thank you today to all the men and women who, like the men of David, have placed their lives in jeopardy for us. We honor those who are now serving in our military, serving our country, and we remember gratefully the veterans of wars of yesterday who responded to their country's call in the hour of danger. If we have caught the vision of Memorial Day, we see not only the parades, I don't think you're going to see many in this rain, but also the invisible, otherwise invisible parade of soldiers marching from Valley Forge and Gettysburg, as well as the battlefields of the present century, soldiers whose blood has nurtured the soil from which our freedom grows. The understanding that Lincoln had is the understanding that we need today. When the train bearing Lincoln's body came across the country, its final resting place, it went through Albany, New York. And crowds gathered to glimpse at the martyr president. A poor black woman lifted up her little boy above the crowd and said, "Son, take a long look. He died for you." Just so we today try to take a long look and view with reverent respect all those whose lives are the price of our heritage. And the third thought from Lincoln's consecration to the task of preserving our heritage, the great president asked us, the living, to be dedicated to the unfinished work which the heroes so nobly advanced. He pleads that from the honored dead we take increased devotion to the cause of responsible freedom, that we highly resolve that these dead shall not die in vain, so that this nation under God shall have a new birth of freedom. You never knew all that was in the Gettysburg Address, did you? Neither did I. So today, at the hopeful conclusion of a war in Iran, the lives lost to our country will not be in vain. Whether it be 10 or 10,000, the losses we sustain affect the families. They know that loss, and we should honor that loss. That loss should be felt by our nation, especially on Memorial Day. Now, the words must be spoken about another aspect of Memorial Day. It has become a day when we remember not only our soldiers, but also all our loved ones who are no longer with us. To many of us, we can remember the day that Memorial Day was Decoration Day. When pilgrimages are made to the cemetery to place flowers on the graves of departed loved ones. So tomorrow should lead us to think about others that have gone before us. Think about death and about relation to the dead. Some of you may remember the Declaration Day, and you may have gone with your parents to lay flowers on the graves of your loved ones and ancestors. Today, the only pilgrimage many make is to the backyard to have a cookout, to celebrate with family and friends a long weekend of time off from work. But in yesterday and other times, we remember. We remember the graveyard. We remember the little American flags that flew on every grave in the town, in the little old town of Millersburg. I remember going there on Sunday. I remember going on Memorial Day. I remember the flags. I remember the bands. I remember the things that we did as a community to honor not only the soldiers, but to honor those who came before us. As we remember, we wonder, where are they now? What is their condition? The answer must be they are closer to God than ever before.
Mm-hmm.
If heaven means nearness to God, and that is what it means to Christians, then those loved ones are in heaven. To depart and be with Christ, as Paul says, is far better than life on earth. What do we think? We think that in our society today, we die and we go to ether, or we go to a better place, or we go to a garden. But we weren't made to die. God didn't make us, create us to die. Can you turn on your imagination and think, what would that be like if nobody died? What would that be like if you lived forever? In the Garden of Eden, Eve and Adam had a choice. They weren't going to die. But they chose wrong. And then came sin. And it changed everything. But you see, go back to that image of those two not ever going to die. We don't have a vision of what the plan was, how they lived after that, how they multiplied, how the world grew, because they made the wrong choice. But our word, our Bible, our Christ tells us that that's what it'll be like when we get to the end. We won't go to heaven and die. We won't be in paradise and have to leave. But until that time, here we are. Death is real, but the believer relies on the word of the Lord. And if a man has faith in me, even though he die, he shall live. John 11:25. The life to which he comes is to be with Christ and be changed into his likeness, one degree of glory to another. Corinthians 3:18. But heaven and its eternal fullness of God and our relationship to God, the perfection awaits the final triumph of Christ and the resurrection of the dead. Then God's purpose for his whole creation will be completely fulfilled. God had a plan. And he's going to fulfill that plan. God did not create us to die. And if you can keep that in mind, you'll see what's going to happen at the end. So when we think about these fallen soldiers, we think about our loved ones that have gone on before us, and we remember these things. That's what they are viewing now. That's what they sacrifice for. They see what we can only imagine. There's a story about an older couple. I envision this. This older couple sitting in the parking lot. It's really hot. Their car's failed. It won't start. They got the hood up on the car. It's tough to even get in and out of the car. That's how old they are. So sitting there, a man comes out of the grocery store, young man. He's got armload of groceries, and he walks by and he sees hood up on the car. And the old man gets out and he said, "Could you help us, please?" Young man, SUV is just on the other side of their car. He walks over, opens the door, puts it in, and he opens the driver's door and he looks back at the old man and says, "As old as you are, you shouldn't even be out here driving anyway." He gets in his car. That's all. The old man goes back to the car and looks at the hood up. And he tries to comfort his wife and say, "It'll be okay, honey. Somebody help us." Just then, a stranger comes by and he asks the old man, says, "Got a problem?" Old man says, "Yeah. Car won't start. Can't get the engine turned over." Stranger approaches the old man with a look on his face like it's going to be okay. So he looks at the engine, but he's not a mechanic. So he doesn't know much more than the old man knows about why the car wouldn't start. But he tells the old man and assures him that he'll go to the service station and get some help. Well, he does. He sees the mechanic and he says, I'll pay you to come back and help this old man get his car started. He explained the situation to him. Returning with the mechanic, the stranger gets into a conversation with the old gentleman. Stranger is wearing a ring signifying that he was in the Marines. The old man tells him, I was in the Marines once too. He confides that he had served in some of the harshest battles in the nation's history. Guadalcanal, Okinawa. And when he got out of the, when the war was over and he got out of the Marines, he retired. And after going through this long conversation, the mechanic fixes the car. Got it running. Well, the old man thanked the stranger, handed him a card. Stranger didn't look at it, just put it in his pocket and went on. Sometime later, he pulled that card out and he looked at it. The name of the old gentleman was on the card in golden leaf. And under his name was written, Congressional Medal of Honor Society. It was only then that the former Marine realized that he had come to the aid of one of America's heroes. Just a reminder, this Memorial Day weekend, that there are men and women who have served our country and received very little in return. It is only right that we recognize the sacrifice and honor their memory this holiday weekend. Remember that God did not create us to die. He created us to live. Death is not a natural part of life's journey. It's an evasion by sin. But it can't disrupt God's original plan of eternal life. Jesus came to give us life. His death on the cross and our belief in him has put us back on the path to live life forever with God. This is the perspective with which we should renew our remembrance of the sacrifice which many have made for us. And we should decorate our hearts and minds with this remembrance this Memorial Day. It is the love of God, the love of country, and the love of our fellow man that drives us to this remembrance. God's people said,